I'd actually like to just start with us beginning with a breath. And we begin with a breath to honor the breath that has been taken away. We honor the stars, we honor the sky, we honor the sun. We honor all living entities of the world. We honor the earth, we honor the soil, we honor the wind, we honor the fresh waters. We honor all ancestral spirits that sit at the foot of the world, and we humbly acknowledge our indebtedness to the ancestors and stewards of this land, who we know to be the Willow Sammamish people. When we do so, we are not simply giving tribute to people who no longer live here. Rather, we are asking permission and invitation by those co-presences who live on this land and whose ancestral energies are at work here with us now, that they continue to be present with us, that they allow us to do our work with humility, with kindness, with generosity, with care. We call on them so that we may attune to and resonate with their existence. I'd like to especially give honor to the ancestor Kenny Moses, who Dakota let me know earlier this morning was a cultural and spiritual worker for the Sammamish. We acknowledge our indebtedness to all more than human life, all the forces and energies of this land. We pay respect, we praise the waterways, we praise the salmon, the birds, the trees, the soil. We have to be aware that in this moment, living in this highly militarized society, we automatically think of resistance and power in terms of violence, in terms of domination and submission. Our liberation is not simply going to happen with fists and bullets. We have to understand that we are in this moment in a battle of the psyche. And that battle is going to be won on the terrain of spirits. Battle happens as we fortify our communities by transforming the poetics of our relations on this earth, la tierra, las piedras. We must change how we relate to each other and to the world. This is what indigenous ways teach us. The ways our ancestors guide us is through doing this work, by honoring our relations. Now, part of what we're doing with this land acknowledgement is to initiate a regular practice here on campus at UW-Bothell of consistently acknowledging the lands on which we live and work as those of the Sammamish Willow people, the people who continue to live on to struggle for this land. Through these practices, we not only pay tribute to the ancestors and stewards of the land, we recommit ourselves in each moment, at each step, with each small interaction every day, to the practice of social justice and the practice of liberation. In each action, each step of the way, we recommit to change our relationships to this land, to all the living entities of this land, and to our communities who continue to struggle and survive for this land. Now my friend Dakota will share with us more about the land protocol.
My name is Dakota Alcantara Kamatsu, and I was born and raised here in Coast Salish territory. My ancestors come from a place called Ludwat and Gunny on my father's side, and on my mother's side, my ancestors come from a place that dominating culture now calls Europe, and also from Ilocos. I'm not Coast Salish. However, in the time that I've been living here, I've been building a relationship to the life ways of this territory. And something that I've come to understand is that any time that we're gathering is a sacred time, and it's good for us to acknowledge the protocol that's existed in this territory since time immemorial. And part of this protocol is honoring those that have come before us. And those that come before us, a lot of times we think about as the human beings, we're talking specifically in this territory, the Sammamish people. And part of the reason why we honor those human beings is because they have a genealogical, a biological, a physical, and a spiritual, cultural commitment, responsibility to the well-being of this territory, to the well-being of all of our relatives here. And I think I need to, as part of this responsibility, acknowledge that when Western society came here, they literally told the Sammamish people, you no longer exist. You do not exist as a people anymore. You can go and live with one of these 3 tribes, but you no longer get to live in your land and be who you are. And I just want to speak about the unfairness of that, of somebody coming into imagine someone coming into your home and telling you your family no longer exists. You're not who you are. And so in honoring the Sammamish people for who they are, part of that is also honoring their relationship to this way of being. And part of this way of being is acknowledging their ancestors through song. And this is the way that, although we're here to talk about Indigenous performance, it's not a performance. It's not a song where I'm performing to you or for you. It's a moment of resonance with Earth, with creation itself. So in this moment, I'm inviting each and every one of you to put your mind and your attention on your relationship to your ancestors, on your relationship to this earth that's right below you, on your relationship to the Salish, which is this body of water over here, your relationship to Eating Monster, which is that body of water over there, your relationship to the mountains that surround us, all of those beautiful mountains and the beings that live here, have lived here, and will live here forever. And we can all stand. I'll just say one last thing.
Ku nan no ani tao tao I'll find my lifeline inside the time I write rhymes. While blood's pulsing through my brain. One thing about nothing, there's nobody that I won't be. Menos a nadie, yo soy nadie, homie. Through gas past the sky, walking horizons. Catwalking with appetites, Greeks, Jews, and Mayans. Son of a gun, I'm the sun. I become one with the lions. And I be lying when I said I was a lion's rock. Lying on the tabletop, twin flips to the middle stop. And yes, I made a rock. Formulated poison plans from where the civilized grannies rock. Like Papa Dante or May's Hold my tail to my sacred ancient thoughts. Perform on the colored fairies that play with hot lava. And I bottle with the drama of Syrian armor is haunted. Creation stories the glory of one of Pele's daughters. So I melee. Hey, I like. He had go. Ginen. Oh, yeah. And I always rep the south end. Dakota es mi nombre, Tacoma is the mountain. I'm sailing in the sailor ship, navigating what my sound is. You know that I will own this. I was born near the Snohomish. Swimming fishing, swimming to the harbors where the oaks live. Ciphering in the eclipse of moonlight as hero poses. Ancient living spirits dancing in canoes upon the ocean. Tying tight song lines between coconuts and cedar trees. Creating family to land. GCL me. We deeply breathe in Temescal, Buddha sage, drink the tea. Classic about the Minga Mahasi, silent blood of the Kuli. Poem then pearl birth in eternal island metropolis. Since time immemorial, this is where the Duomas live. This place kids, we're claiming our red paint, so in pop with it. I honor it with glacier flows, I'm dropping in. He had go. King. Oh, yeah. He had go. King. The lineage of the lines that I inscribe as I write poems from sense minds, concepts and timelines and time zones I'm from. The ancient earth crust, the birth dust, the primordial is my home. I've flown around with sky gods who walk the jungle with Mother Earth on a tightrope. Native man, your rootless, I pray I can understand the truth. Big brother Cena teach me how to heal as I understand abuse. And Buddha teach me how to be lonely as a bandicoot. As my family move away from homeland, the USA stole. Implanting Newton, our movement became a new trend in human history. Miserably called the aspera. Another concept that can capture what we've been through. My pen moved to trace my line back home, and I roll through the infinite black zone. Classic rocking with my dad's homies. Praying as a star, Hawaii's navigating her jazz songs. Africa's children making melodic atlases. Indigenous craftsmanship, I practice this craft, so I honor the masters of the free flow. Onisha with the degree, oh yeah, homie, hip hop is that old. Fast forward to sci-fi, I'm 20th and Jackson. Fool is the satisfaction food. Ladies first in hip hop period. It's every Sunday night, African hands doing patterns on drums like brah brah ha. And every season LD open, not getting a snack on. You speak true speaking and listen gentrification. Community unity got the back, huh? Back in Sensi Beach is a ceremony and song. Before the battle in Seattle, when my time comes, no matter the task, we practice and say we fought wrong. While they murder and slave, occupying drop bombs. On the day until the way over there, we go on like Hitai Manauta, Hininatanu, Hitai Manauta, Hininatanu, Hitai Pinanana, Hininatanu, Hitai Pinanana, Hininatanu. Down, 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 Hita imanado, imanado, Hita ipina na nada. Iman matuhe nui pina na sakman siha finan yaguhit no siha. Finan yaguhit no siha.
Let's do the last American Indian on Earth. My journey on performance art has been incredibly difficult and easy at the same time. It's been a a big part of my artistic practice in figuring out, I mean, I know who I am, but you know, you learn a lot about yourself when you're standing in front of a group of people, trying to create something that is intangible, that is almost abstract, that only embodies your human self and maybe the words that come out of your mouth. And I was introduced to performance work by the late, great James Luna, who is my friend and my mentor who passed away recently. And he had this idea that I loved. I've always loved the way that he talked about performance art. And he said that performance art for indigenous people is incredibly important because it gives us control, it gives us power in real time. It allows us to control what you see and how you see it, and it can turn on a dime. And in partnership to the performance art is installation work, and the way that installation work allows us to embody entire spaces and entire places with which everybody gets to interact, including us in our performative process. So my first performance piece is The Last American Indian on Earth, which of course is tongue-in-cheek. Everybody thinks we're dead, but we're not. We're still here. And what I did is I dressed in this outfit. It's a plain style outfit, but it's also the stereotype. It's what everybody believes that we are. And I purchased all of these things over the counter. I believe the headdress is made in China. Most of the rest of the outfit is assembled either in China or in Mexico. And I wore this outfit in public. As an indigenous person, the stereotype plays such a huge role in forcing everybody's perception of our identity onto us. And in this situation, as a Native person, I am beholding myself as the stereotype for other people, which immediately changes the definition of what you're looking at. Not because I'm a willing participant, but because I'm wielding it as a tool, as a weapon, as a piece that acts as a social mirror. Because when I turn on the cameras, when I turn on video, and I begin to document the way people interact with me, as I did here, you begin to see what sort of presence we have. And so comes the power of existence within space. And the performance art aspect, as well as installation, I believe are two things that allow us to exist in spaces. And immediately upon our existence in these spaces should come the questions that come along with that. What am I looking at? Why is this here? Who is this? What does it mean? Does it align with what I believe and what I see or what I believe is true? All of which, to me, is predicated upon the fact that every single thing you think you know about indigenous people is false. And in the case of The Last American Indian on Earth, in order for me to create something that is comprehensive to the American and Western mind, I have to use those falsehoods to represent existence in space and time in order to engage people in a way and in a language that they understand, even though that language is not true, which is the struggle of our existence. The struggle of our existence is that we have to live your lie in order for us to talk about our truths, which immediately muddies our truth. And so this is the great struggle. It is my hope that this type of work, this conscious work, because we are prominent and able to speak in a language that you understand. And because of that conscious understanding of that language, that gives us power to move forward and change the narrative so that it's more appropriate for where we are and where you should be with us.
Thank you. So this is a piece called Squeeze. This is, I think, the only time I've physically put myself into a performance. It was for the Bellwether's, the Bellevue Art Museum's Bellwether Art Experience Festival. And throughout this exhibition, in its multiple locations, I essentially pretended to be a worker employed by, let's say, market forces or kind of like big corporation. And we went around acquiring things, acquiring trees, acquiring water, drinking fountains, spaces where people put their bicycles, spaces that you might sit. I installed these variety of price tags and somewhat arbitrarily assigned values to each, claiming them from the public, and then artificially auctioning them off to the highest bidder. And so throughout this exhibition, I'll go to the next slide, I installed them all throughout the city and then made several loops over the span of about 2 weeks, continuously escalating the prices, as well as marking things sold. Fun side story on this bench. I just found this such a strange part of this project. For the most part, some people would feel comfortable talking to me, some people wouldn't. Some people would demand to know what I was doing, to which point I told them they had to speak to my supervisor, and they immediately lost interest. But while installing this piece on the bench, I was told that I had to go through kind of a rigorous process with the city for permission on what things I was and was not allowed to price. And I was told that I was allowed to price a bench, but only one that didn't have a memorial plaque on them, because they didn't want me to be pricing a memorial. They also informed me that they weren't allowed to do that. They were all bad for selling off these benches. And so I found like one bench in the whole park that wasn't marked, and as I went through pricing it, people kept asking me if they could buy it. They're like, ooh, are you auctioning off like the nameplate for this bench? And at those prices, I should have said yes, and I was writing a check. But it was just a kind of a generally baffling experience. But it was an interesting piece. They were up for about 2 weeks. And the idea was it was constantly changing and constantly escalating, and working with this idea of who has the right to decide that they can take other people's property, or take the public property, and then tie them into arbitrary capitalist assignments. Next slide. This is a piece called The Post-Human Archive. And it was created as the educational contemplation space for the Double Exposure exhibition, which was at the Seattle Art Museum. That exhibition compared the work of Edward S. Curtis with 3 contemporary Native artists. Edward Curtis was funded by J.P. Morgan and Theodore Roosevelt to create a project that was tied to social Darwinism. He went around with the purpose of documenting the last of the Native Americans, what he dubbed the vanishing race. However, rather than being a historic document, they're often very distorted images. He would carry trunks with him where he would dress people in regalia from other tribes if he didn't think that they looked Indian enough on their own. He would have people move vehicles or move away from light posts. He would edit his photographs to take out any evidence of modern devices. And the purpose of this was to frame Native American people as incompatible with a modern industrialized future. And now it's often looked back to as this historic document of which it's not. And so I wanted to make a conversation about that. And so I thought, if I were going to kind of push this forward to now today, who might be wanting to do that? And so as you enter the space, I'm not going to say Siri, but her voice would come on and say, welcome to the Post-Human Archive Historical Preservation Project, brought to you by the Children of the Singularity and the AI Center for Ethnography. Our mission is to record the final examples of biological human life for the sake of posterity. We are so excited to document you, a prime example of a real-life human being in our archives. If anyone's going to follow us, it's probably going to be artificial intelligence. However, the assertion that biological life is just no longer going to survive is a pretty bold one. Next slide. In this space, rather than being photographed by an ethnographer, people were invited to take selfies. I had 2 backdrop settings, which also referenced the way that Edward Curtis would bring fake backdrops, which he would pin up, so that it looked like people were maybe in caves or in different types of locations. We have the cubicle, where I imagine artificial intelligence might think we live. And then a pastoral backdrop, which shows you can't quite see the blue skies, but you can see the vast industry pumping toxins into the air. So it's kind of giving us an idea of how we might be becoming near our end. And so as people documented themselves, they then went into the archive. The archive was a near replica of the Library of Congress, including its dehumanizing categorization of people by types, by profile, by things that they're wearing, or arbitrary assignments of what role they might have. And I also looked at Edward Curtis's catalogs, so the Indians of stone houses became the humans of glass offices, and kind of created this parody of those documentations. So once people put their images in, we then captured them from the internet or anything that was public, and then they had no say in how they were depicted, and there was no process to correct any assumptions I may have made about them, whether they were single or a CEO's daughter, etc. So.
Thank you.
Wow, it's really, I just want to say, it's really wonderful to be a gathering with, everyone with so many different approaches. I think that's really shines a lot of light on the strength of Indigenous performance at this moment. This is my book. I have about 4 copies. It's called Blues Divine. So these texts were and are part of the Casino Project. I'd like to share some of them with you. Another part of telling these stories, I read something the other day that it said that for every $10,000 more that your family makes, you have an X amount more likelihood of being an artist. So the art world is very class-bound. Poor people don't get very many chances to be artists. So I grew up with my lesbian mom on welfare, getting evicted and living in SRO hotel rooms sometimes. And the young people I grew up with didn't have opportunities to be artists. And I don't know why I'm an artist, except I would say my grandmother was an artist. She came from Alaska, having been taken from her culture, having been taken from the soulful aspect of her own culture, and found soul in Black music. And she shared that with me. So I combined that with some poetry. So I'll read this poem. It's called Grace. Grace, these aren't over me because I live in music. And you can find me there in the discordance and confusion of everyday life. I'm there, in between a blue note and a new note. You can keep that picture there, that's my grandmother. I'm there. Grace, ease on over me, see me and fall all over my everything, for there is nothing you cannot stand or understand. I can rest easy. I trust myself in your hand because I know you love me. You always loved me. Through the bitterest seasons when rhyme left me stranded, you walked with me full of feeling and spoke in total silence. I swear Aretha Franklin has saved my life more times than I can count. And if Billy sent me sometimes to the 57th floor, why she'd always find a way to sink me down. I could glide down easy on Charlie Parker with strings and find myself in April in Paris. Chestnuts and blossom, April in Paris. And somehow at those moments nothing else mattered. At those moments, nothing that is not music can touch me. Spirit swathes me like impervious armor, and I understand what keeps me living. You see, it's the sheer goddamn funky swing of it all, the mystery at the heart of it, and at the end of the road, I understand why Nana played that record so much. Songs to torch by. Now, torture is not a widely known about thing anymore, but those folks they knew how to get a misery out of you before it became fatal. Why, just roll yourself in it and let the tears and rage flow out. Let Billy carry that cross for you. She already died for your sins, don't you know? So when I get the lowdown miseries, I reach for the tried and true soldiers of survival, and they come singing and moaning and falling out and getting up and exhibiting so much class and grace and style till after some time I feel my soul stretching and straightening up, filling my living frame, and I once again rejoin the human race. Music is my mistress, and she and I will never part. That image there is called I Cover the Waterfront. It was exhibited as a triptych as part of the Casino project. Thank you.
What we do is what we do, you know, and there's this idea that because of where we come from and what our identity may be, that if we have an opinion and if we speak that opinion out loud, that it's not looked at or thought of or considered as a legitimate statement of truth that should be looked at, searched for, you know, whatever else, but instead is ultimately commodified and used to like uphold what this person's an activist. It's like I'm an adult with an opinion, you know, and the commodification of those things, the commodification of our struggle, because every aspect of indigeneity has been commodified from our image to our likeness to these traditions. You know, there's a lot of rich people in Northern California that paid good money for a sweat lodge. And so the commodification of those things is a circle that is not ended. We're still being commodified. Our struggle is being commodified. And so when Standing Rock happened, you could see it. Immediately you could see it. And it wasn't just about standing in solidarity of this struggle. It was that this struggle didn't matter until it was so prominent and prevalent in social media that everybody had to have an opinion or they would just look like an asshole, right? And it was a commodification of our struggle. And so that raises questions, I think, within our work, which is what we're doing being done because we're artists and because we're expressing ourselves as artists, and we are artists that happen to have indigenous voices or queer voices that are also indigenous, that have these intricate identities, or are we some commodified, fun little thing that you get to escape from, that you can push into a corner in Santa Fe, and that's the only place it exists during Indian art market? Where is the legitimacy of our work? Where is the legitimate concern and consideration for our work? Because the things that we say and the things that we do, as you especially I think have expressed, is personal. Art is personal. All art is personal. I mean, I don't know how personal Damien Hirst's work is, but you know, like there is a piece of ourselves that go into this, our voices, our struggles, our experiences, our own thoughts, processes as we try to navigate this place as human beings, this place that is foreign to our spirits. And as we go through that journey, does that journey only have worth because of your perception of the commodification of our struggle? Or does it have worth because we're human beings who are artists and we need to find equal ground in those places? And I'm happy to be surrounded by such brilliant artists, you know, and I love coming into contact with other artists that challenge me. Your price piece, the piece where you put price on it, makes me so mad because I didn't come up with it. That's so brilliant. It's so good. And that stuff, you know, the challenging that we feel as artists when we come into contact with other artists that we love and respect is something I think a lot of people are missing when they don't realize like what we're doing or why we're doing it. I believe that there needs to be a greater sense of equality and not commodification of our work and our voices, so that we can share the value of our thoughts and our experiences, and people can see it on a grander scale, because the Western art world does not recognize indigenous art as a faction of the art world. We are commodified.
And everybody, you can stand and move and you can sing along. This is a Two-Spirit song that I learned from the Two-Spirit gathering that the Montana Two-Spirit Society does every summer. And it's created by Joey Credell and Wade Blevins.
So I ask that you stand.